A new world order. That was George H.W. Bush's quote. He was speaking before Congress, talking about the crisis in the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Kuwait. Today, we have another crisis in the Persian Gulf with the Iran war, and it's confusing. We don't quite understand the motives or objectives, though we know what is stated by Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. So I ask only that you ignore what these men have said, what their detractors have said, and you take a look at only the actions taken, the data points that we can specifically set out, which is Venezuela under Western control, Cuba on the verge of a military invasion, sanctioned and cut off. Iran's government, the top 40 or 50 officials are all dead. The Strait of Hormuz in disarray. China has been cut off from around 40 to 50% of its energy. The United States now controls the Panama Canal once again, is working towards securing the Northwest Passage. Dare I say, my friends, it appears with Donald Trump's efforts negotiating with Russia, Saudi Arabia, and threatening to leave NATO, George H.W. Bush's New World Order is dead. And Trump killed it. And it looks now, based on the profit that we are seeing driven by this current war, there is a new World Order, a Trump World Order, as some have suggested it may be called, where the energy producers of the world take control of the global economy and infrastructure, and everyone else must live under their rules. Trump is threatening to pull out of NATO, the Western alliance that propped up this idea of a new world order. But what is the new world order? Well, my friends, the liberal economic order, if you're not familiar, was established after World War II to prevent World War III. Thus, we were blessed with things like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, things of that nature. Now, the Soviets had their own vision for this, and this led to a proxy war in a multipolar world, meaning there were two powers constantly fighting. Well, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the West became the dominant power and birthed this new world order, for which there are many conspiracy theories about how it would actually play out. But a few things have been happening over this first year of Trump's second term that lead me to believe I think Trump may have made a move on the chessboard which has set him up. Thus, he cannot lose at this point. Now, I'm not entirely sure. And it's not so much about Trump. Trump is simply the avatar. Many people say, you think Trump could pull this off? Trump's an idiot. He's a bloviating braggart. And all that's true. No, it's the Trump administration, the people around him, the people who work for him in intelligence. When you take a look at all the pieces on the board, things start getting interesting. One notable piece of this story, outside of the war, again, I ask you, ignore what Trump says. Ignore Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem and the weird drama. Tulsi Gabbard has reportedly filed for a criminal referral against the whistleblower who tried to have Trump impeached. This is the individual who is at the crux of the deep state conspiracy against Donald Trump. Upon seeing this story and taking a look at the current state of the world, oil sales, the Gulf of America is exporting crude like nobody's business. In fact, the U.S. is set to be a net exporter of oil for the first time since World War II. You take a look at these pieces on the board, and it comes together. Now, I would judge this on a probability standard, meaning the way I approach these things is not so much, is it true? It's, is it probable? And I'm probably wrong. I think that's fair. But I think the assessment that I have grazes the truth. Crop dusts. It gets real close to the ground. Something appears to have been happening for some time, what with Donald Trump's lawyers being arrested, his home being raided, him being threatened with arrest. But maybe it all changed. When Donald Trump won in 2024, a nuclear bomb was dropped on D.C., USAID and this network of illicit funds being transferred to all of these cronies evaporates. And so I say this to everybody to remember that. When I talk about USAID, I say this is something massive that Trump did. That was a nuclear bomb on what we would call the New World Order. And now we have the Trump world order emerging before our very eyes. So let me break it all down for you. There's my summary. Check this out. First, Trump planning invasion of Cuba as attack could be imminent. Indeed. Cuba is routed. Their government on the verge of collapse. They are without electricity and energy. Take a look at this. Let's start here. Iran war brings U.S. close to net crude exporter for the first time since World War II. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The big beneficiaries of this war are three companies: Saudi Aramco, Gazprom, ExxonMobil. It appears that George H.W. Bush's vision for a new world order, which involved our NATO allies, is dead. And the Trump world order is that if you produce energy like Saudi Arabia, Russia, or the United States, then you control the world. Donald Trump has been negotiating with Russia for some time, telling Russia and Vladimir Putin that he should be allied with us. At the same time, he's talking about leaving NATO. Now, the question is, when the media loses its mind, attacks Donald Trump, and says all of this is bad and he's attacking our allies, well, the question is, to what end? If it serves the interest of the United States, could we not have other allies? It's an honest question. Now, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Vladimir Putin and how he has operated, particularly with the invasion of Ukraine. I think that he was losing the soft power battle. But that doesn't change the fact of what we are seeing. I want to show you this clip. This is from September 11th, 1990, where George H.W. Bush lays out what the new world order is. And then I want to show you where we're currently at.
A new partnership of nations has begun, and we stand today at a unique and extraordinary moment. The crisis in the Persian Gulf, as grave as it is, also offers a rare opportunity to move toward an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. An era in which the nations of the world, East and West, North and South, can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace, while 1,000 wars raged across the span of human endeavor.
East and West, he says. I've shown you this article from the Council on Foreign Relations quite a bit, but I want to give you a quick highlight for those that are not familiar. What is the liberal world order? They say after World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, countries sought to ensure the world would never again devolve into such horrific violence. World leaders created a series of international organizations and agreements to promote global cooperation based on a system known as the liberal world order. This was the 50s, but the Soviet Union still existed. And thus, with George H.W. Bush's statement about the crisis in the Persian Gulf in 1990, a new world order emerged. And what was it? Well, my friends, I can't say I know exactly, and a lot of this is just pure speculation. It is. I feel that I am only lightly grazing over what the truth may actually be in this bigger picture. But some have speculated. China's economy is ascendant. H.W. Bush says north and south, east and west. I would argue, from that point on, what did we see? Democrats began shipping off our jobs, our manufacturing base and our trade to China. In the 2010s, we saw the attempt at what's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal with China and other Asian nations that would give them tremendous authority in the United States. They'd be able to sue private citizens and corporations over various issues related to whether or not they were trading properly. And it gave them authority, in a sense, with this treaty. Trump threw it in the garbage. I believe that the uniparty elites, the Democrats, fearing Thucydides' trap, and again, I know I talk about it quite a bit, but this is when a dominant economic power is collapsing and a new economic power is ascendant, war tends to break out. So the idea is we need a partnership with China. Powerful elites in the United States, including politicians, began accepting money, transferring wealth, under the presumption that the United States was on the decline. Empires only last 250 years, right? And thus, when that shift came, they would avoid a war, as is the goal of the liberal world order. And the transferring of power to China would create a new world order. And the powerful elites in the United States would sell us out to stay wealthy. I mean, you got great places, right? You got Macau. Don't forget Singapore. The region has some beautiful luxury. And you may be a king in the United States, figuratively, but when it all comes crashing down, would you want to go back to being a pig farmer? Well, these individuals sold off our jobs, our manufacturing, to manage the decline of the United States, resulting in an ascendant China. When Donald Trump came in his first term, Michael Flynn said, Russia is not our biggest threat. China is. He was instantly demonized, vilified. They tried putting him in prison. European powers were at war, figuratively at the time, diplomatically, were in conflict, I'll say it like that, with Russia. Well, to be fair, actually, yeah, with the conflict in Ukraine and the Donbass, not a full-scale invasion, this conflict was still very serious. The West wanted Russia to drop to its knees and play ball with this new world order. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, the BRICS nations are still outside of the Western powers, but I do believe that they were expecting China to be ascendant. It looks like everything is changing right now. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. oil blockade is set to boost American exports and prices at the pump. I want to show you a couple of posts. This is from Jack Prendelli. Look at the map. Every red arrow is a tanker, all converging on the Gulf of America. This is the world rerouting in real time. Let me say this again to all of you. Whether or not Russia is going to be a part of the fold or not, I don't know. What I can say is we are watching right now a realignment of global power. It is happening. That is a fact. You can call Trump a moron. Please do. It doesn't change the facts. Now, maybe Trump isn't responsible. Maybe it's the CIA, the deep state, the military apparatus, whatever you want to call it. It's happening. 167 crude tankers declared U.S. destinations, 103 empty vessels steaming to load American crude. U.S. exports already at record 12.7 million barrels a day, heading to 15 million barrels a day and climbing. From 1995 to 2015, the U.S. couldn't legally export crude. In 2026, it's about to become the world's largest oil exporter. Hormuz is closed. Qatar is gone. Saudi output cut. Russia back to sanctions. And every tanker on this map already knew where to go. Indeed, my friends. Here we can see the Gulf of America, Florida, Cuba, Panama Canal, and every tanker rushing full speed to Texas to buy sweet, sweet American black gold. Now, to be fair, this post does mention Qatar's, they're done. Iran bombed their LNG field and they can't produce now. Saudi Arabia also is struggling to export because the strait is closed. Saudi Aramco, however, has seen record profits as well as Gazprom. And that's why I say I don't see this as the big picture. The big picture to me is the new world order, the Trump world order. Now, I've not everybody has watched. So for the people who watch all of my videos, I ask only that you bear with me. For those that didn't, I don't want to jump the gun because I provided context in a previous video. So I'm going to re-explain some things to people who haven't seen them. They call Trump an idiot. They say this war in Iran was because of Israel and he's stupid and he's stuck and he's making mistakes. Say whatever you want. All of it must be true, I guess, right? Now let's talk about what's actually happening outside of politics. The United States makes a move on Venezuela, seizing the largest energy producer in the world. The U.S. now controls Venezuelan oil output. They immediately surround Cuba and deploy sanctions, threaten any country who'd supply them with energy. Cuba's government is in collapse. They're out of electricity. They can't power their buildings. And now there's reportedly plans for an invasion of Cuba. Two adversaries of the United States crushed overnight. We move to Iran. Top 40 or 50 officials in their government dead. The Strait of Hormuz in disarray. 20% of the world's oil supply and liquid natural gas cut off. And when Iran reopened the strait, offering a toll, the U.S. declared a blockade of ships intending to enter or exit Iranian ports. Now, it's not a direct blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The media has reported that. Trump did say it. However, we have seen reports that many tankers have been able to make it through. Either way, without Iran, China is cut off from 40 to 50% of its energy. 4 of the U.S.'s top adversaries are now in complete disarray. Something is happening. And by all means, you can say Trump's made a mistake. He's fumbled his way here. It was an accident that he just realigned global power. I'm sure it was, my friends. I'm sure that's it. The Wall Street Journal reports Europe is accelerating a NATO fallback plan in case Trump pulls out. Indeed, I think it's pretty dang obvious. Don't you? The United States demanded that Europe, that NATO, demanded a strong word, allow us to use their air bases so that we could launch our offensive on Iran. But they refused. Hold on a minute. This doesn't it seem strange to you? Our European allies, we fund with NATO, with military bases, our troops over there at these bases, and we can't land our planes. Why would Europe obstruct Trump's moves here? I think it's obvious. I think Western Europe makes up the old alliance of the New World Order that George H.W. Bush was talking about. And there's questions about whether or not they were going to allow China to take over. If the theory is that the end result is global domination under a one world system, perhaps that makes sense. And again, I'm going to tell you this. I don't exactly know because there are conflicting things in what we see internationally. Now, Trump has cut off China and Europe is pissed. Why? The theory is that they were bringing in mass migration and they were trying to get natural gas into Europe to offset the expansion of the Chinese economy, which never really sat right with me, though we have talked about it quite a bit. That is one of the prevailing theories. The U.S., back in the 2000s, before Trump, was trying to build a natural gas pipeline from Qatar through Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria. It actually may have gone through the Gulf itself, Turkey, into Europe to offset Russia's Gazprom gas monopoly. Well, that dream is dead. Now, Qatar's LNG is non-existent because of this war. Europe, they're pissed about it. They're refusing to assist the United States. Trump is threatening to pull us out of NATO. The U.S. is now on track to be the largest oil exporter in the world and a net exporter for the first time since World War II, having wiped out our enemies in the region. I don't think it's an accident. What you say to me, Tim? But what do you mean he defeated the deep state? I think maybe. Now, what I will say is, I don't know that the deep state is gone or that Trump has shut them down. I think you take a look at Virginia, it's highly possible that that's actually what we're looking at. The deep state is entrenching itself. It's not completely gone. But take a look at this from DNI.gov. Tulsi Gabbard exposes conspiracy used by Congress to impeach President Trump. Indeed, they talk a bit about the whistleblower. Let's pull up that little comment there. IC Inspector General Atkinson aggressively advanced a so-called whistleblower's narrative using a witness who co-authored the 2017 Russia hoax that was used as the basis for Trump's impeachment. Now, it's been reported that Tulsi Gabbard has referred this individual to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. Low-hanging fruit. Let me tell you about how weird things are. When Trump was impeached, a report from Real Clear Investigations was dropped, naming the whistleblower based on information that we had gained through some of the statements, the job title and roles. Real Clear Investigations put out the name of the individual in question. If you, as a regular old person, went on Facebook, went on YouTube, and said this name, your video was deleted instantly. You know what? I want to pull up an example. A sitting senator. That's what we were looking at. Let's see. Video removed. Let's get this one. I didn't have it pulled up. I got to pull it up now. Let's see. The CIA tried to remove a sitting president. Let's see. A now deleted video from the White House's YouTube page. No, that's not correct. Well, let's do this. From the Washington Examiner. Rand Paul reads out his... Did I say Ron Paul? Rand Paul reads out his question naming alleged whistleblower Eric Ciaramella. On the Senate floor, Rand Paul spoke this person's name, unrelated to the whistleblower claims. YouTube deleted his video. It was on C-SPAN. I'm going to say that again for you. Rand Paul, on the Senate floor, was discussing individuals working in intelligence that he had questions about, unrelated to Trump's impeachment. He named this one particular individual just as a person of interest. YouTube deleted the video. Why? Strange, isn't it? I had a video on YouTube when the story broke. The weirdest thing happened. I was told the video was gone. Someone messaged me saying, "Why did you delete your video?" I said, I didn't. I went to my YouTube channel. I went to the studio, the back end, went to the where the video was, and I saw it there. Everything looked fine. When I went to click on it, the mouse would not change to the link click. You know, when you've got the little cursor arrow and you put over a link, it turns to a finger. It wouldn't do it. And I'm confused. I can't click my own video. I couldn't do anything with it. It was gone. Several people noticed on Facebook, if you said this person's name, Facebook would delete your post. And so his name spread like wildfire. And we knew that we could not say this person's name, which is absolutely insane. Well, now this person's name is widely known, and this era is over. And here I say, Eric Ciaramella. Now, the presumption is he's the whistleblower, and considering the mass censorship campaign, ham-fisted as it were, I'm inclined to believe it's probably true. So what does that mean? I want you to think about this. When Donald Trump got into office in 2017, he won in 2016, and his administration said Russia is not the threat China is, it terrified people in power. What was their plan? What were they working on with China? Why did they want to stop Trump from stopping China? That's why the theory is the West has been colluding with China for a new world order. I will say this. Here's what we do know. Intel agencies had backdoors into Facebook, Twitter, presumably YouTube as well, but we've never got any direct evidence of that, to remove content they would flag. This is well known at this point. I'm willing to believe that this ham-fisted panic when the name was dropped resulted in these platforms Streisand affecting Eric Ciaramella's name. All across the internet, everybody was whispering it. I made a post on Facebook where I said, Eric Ciaramella is a 50-year-old dentist from Dubuque, Iowa. He has 3 kids, and he enjoys going to their soccer games. They deleted that post without notice, without notification. I went onto my Facebook page. It was gone. Why? Certainly other people have the name Eric Ciaramella. I wasn't talking about any whistleblower, and that was the test. It would seem that they automatically set the machine to delete the name if it ever appeared. Interesting, huh? There are deep games afoot, but something like that was a desperate and panicked attempt, I would say. And then, of course, I have questions about the pandemic. Indeed, how the world reacted. Joe Biden getting into office, I would posit this. Maybe it's all wrong. And there are 1,000,001 theories. That's why I say it's all just probability. Could it be that the last-ditch effort of the old New World Order? It's funny how they call it that, right? The New World Order. Could it have ended with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in a panicked frenzy among the deep state? The uniparty neocon right-wingers that jumped ship and joined the Democrats, that was their faction. And now we're seeing something totally different. What Trump is doing is crushing the old ways. We may leave NATO. And the people that are pissed about it don't seem to have all that much power anymore. Does Trump even really care about the midterms? It's an honest question. The Supreme Court in oral arguments hinted that they are going to end election month with a leader discussing election day is supposed to be a single day. And if we do that, the ability for these intelligence asset, old school deep state individuals to gain power will be thwarted. I don't think Trump's won. I don't think that the battle is over. My point is that should this reading of what's going on in the world prove correct, Trump has developed the board to such a degree, his advantage is too great, and his opponents will not be able to launch a counteroffensive that will be successful. We're at the point in the chess game where the opponent should look down, think about it for a second, and offer a handshake. That's not always how it goes, though. Some people choose to fight to the bitter end, and perhaps I am wrong and we're not at that point. But based on what we're seeing internationally, George H.W. Bush's dream of a new world order seems to be dead. That system is crumbling before our very eyes and has been for some time. I wonder. Trump was very critical of this back then. I wonder what's really going on. You know, in all seriousness, I wouldn't be surprised to find it's all chaos and no one really knows. Trump's just firing from the hip. The CIA, old guard, are scattered. Everyone's just fighting. But I don't know. When I look at the grand stage, the global scale, and all of these military events we have just seen in the past couple of months, I'm sorry. Accuse Trump of what everyone accused him of, but I will say it one last time. Venezuela, oil seized. Cuba on the verge of collapse. Iran's government wiped out. China cut off from their energy. Doesn't seem like an accident, does it? I guess we'll see. I'm going to wrap it up there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. More to come throughout the day. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.